Hi, and welcome to my video on SideNav Thinkific Student Dashboard example. In this video, I'm going to demo and show you how I've customized the Thinkific Student Dashboard page to focus on enhancing and making sure the user experience is as high as possible. So I'm going to include a link in the description below to the Super Powerup so that you can check out SideNav and all the other Super Powerups by Thinkific Expert Rob Galvin and identify the ones that work for your business. But before I go into the demo, one of the things that I really emphasize and talk about often is, what problem are you trying to solve? So I think it's important to sort of start there before I go into the demo, because otherwise I wouldn't be properly doing a good job of teaching this benefit and problem that SideNav solves. So SideNav is really what it sounds like, side navigation, and it's really designed to enhance and transform the Thinkific Student Dashboard layout. So the layout in itself is very simple, and there's not a lot of if you use the default setting, there's not a lot of colors and customization to your brand. There's not a lot of different ways to set up the menu. And so that's where, that kind of challenge can be really frustrating for your learners and users who find it very unengaging and not very useful in terms of navigating. And so with SideNav, we can really transform how the student dashboard looks so that it's really tailored to your users, tailored to your students, and it really focuses on the one thing that we all want to do more of, which is sell more courses. So with that said, it's really important that you take the step of asking yourself, what problem am I solving? What challenges do my students have? And what do my students need? And so those are three key questions that I would like to challenge all of us to ask ourselves before we jump right into any Thinkific changes or even Powerup installations. One of the last things that I like to say is that all the Powerups represent solutions to different problems. So that if you are interested in a specific Powerup, one of the things that you can do is work backwards. And so this is one thing that you can do is start with like a specific Powerup such as SideNav or Ding or Swiss, and ask yourself, what problem does this solve? If you understand and can really drill down into the problem on a very surface level and then going into a deep level to really understand and really discern what the Powerup serves, then I would say it's much easier for you to approach this in your own business. One of the things that happens most often is it's easy to get caught up in the solution rather than what the problem is. So with that said, I'm going to go right into this use case of why and what the problem that I'm trying to solve when I wanted to customize this Thinkific Student Dashboard page. So for me and my business, one of the things that I've noticed is that I'm really committed and focused on learner experience and learner journey. And I'm also very focused on a very high and very positive user experience. The reason why I want to solve these problems for my business is because I notice that my students are online more and more often now. And with my students being online more and more often, they tend to sort of lose focus, lose interest, and get sidetracked because there's a lot of content overwhelm, a lot of content on a page, and they just get easily frustrated and easily sidetracked. And when that happens, my students tend to leave the page and forget where they've started and what they've done in the course to go and look at Facebook or stalk social media. And so my whole problem is I really want to keep my students on this Thinkific Student Dashboard page more often. Because when they leave the page and go somewhere else, that's when I've kind of lost them. And I see student progress and student productivity in a course decline significantly. So that's the problem that I have, and that's the problem that I'm trying to solve with by customizing this Thinkific Student Dashboard. Now, I am going to just quickly, don't want to spend too much time, but I will quickly show you how I've set up the student dashboard and what for those problems of learner engagement, upsell, and user experience, and then show you what it looks like when I am logged in as a student and how those changes really can impact and really make a positive difference in the learner experience. So a couple of things that I want to highlight about sort of how I solve for that user experience and learner engagement with using the student dashboard and SideNav is first thinking about how those challenges with user experience is reflected in the navigation. So I have set up the SideNav menu in a way that really makes it easy and very effective for my students to know what is in each category to navigate. And then I've also set up the banner slider so that it's highlighting important information, such as what's going on in our Facebook group, important posts, new posts that I think are worthy of highlighting to my students about, discussion topics. And then the last thing in the banner slider that I've customized and set up for always upselling is notifying and teasing information about upcoming launches. And then I use the cards to set up the navigation so that it's structured based on the learning tracks, or what people might call the categories. And then I set it up, the cards to sort of organize the content so that it's easier to navigate and it's also less cluttered on the page. So let me just show you a little bit in the back end of how I set it up to solve for those kinds of problems, and then I'll go back into the final, what it looks like as a student. So quickly, as you'll see, one of the things that is important when you're building this out is always customizing it to your business and customizing it to your brand. So that means logo, colors, headings, and sort of like the language that resonates with your students. So the default may say my courses, but I have customized it and reflected it. Made the change so that it reflects my experience to say I want to focus on my learning journey. And then I've left my account because I think that's just the sort of like administrative aspect that I wanted to sort of always keep the kind of language that's familiar. But with the rest of the learning and courses material, I always just like to call it my learning journey. But that's just me. And then I've added the video on the side so that it's kind of like a intro and kind of walking my students through how this new student dashboard looks and how it really kind of sets them up for a really amazing learning experience. And then to supplement that kind of sidebar navigation, I've also included a top navigation. So one of the things that I notice is sometimes my students tend to lose track in their focus and where their eyes are tracking on the page. So I have this top navigation set up for kind of supplemental learning resources to sort of keep them on track. And then you'll see that at the end. And then my account menu group is sort of the options that will show up, the sub menu items that show up in the my account menu bar. And so if I'm not offering certificates, so I don't want to have this show up. Otherwise, it is kind of confusing and not very consistent and looks kind of unprofessional. I really just want to highlight items in the menu that really are important to my students and what they want to access and need to access often. And then Thinkific communities this is something that I think everyone can decide for their own. I didn't want it to show up in the main student dashboard area because I want to keep the page very clean, and also because for my students, we may use Facebook or other platforms, and so I don't want Thinkific communities to sort of show up and then confuse my students if we are using Slack, Discord, or Facebook. And then the last thing I want to mention is that in this SideNav menu is that these are set up for categories. So this menu will be set up based on the categories and learning tracks. And so this kind of defaults to whatever categories are automatically set up in my Thinkific site. And then I've also, if I am using communities, and it can also have that as a default. And then a menu group where I can include learning resources and key sort of tips to help my students stay on track. And so those are just some examples of how I've set up my SideNav menu. You've seen how I set up the banner, and then now I want to show you a little bit about the cards. And so the cards, you can think about, these are the course cards, and you've seen this maybe in some other videos, that these are all tailored for upsells. And so the idea is really not to be overly like balance the content on the page, so that the students are always focused on the learning experiences and focused on their learning journey, but also with this eye of how they can continue to be part of this learning journey after this course. So there is different sort of upsells that are set up so that after a student completes this course, or even during the duration of this course, they're always kind of thinking like, what does my journey look like after this course? So that, they are with me not just for one course, but they're with me hopefully for the lifelong journey of being a student. And then again, one of the things that I've said before is it's important to kind of tailor the language of the heading so that it really resonates with your student. I think it's so often we default to the very default headings and default text, but when we really customize it, it really makes a difference in our students' learning experience. So now that I've sort of kind of quickly gone through how I've customized and set up the student dashboard, the Thinkific Student Dashboard, so that it really reflects the problem of solving for user experience, upsells in a way that's not overly cluttered or overly overt, and then also for a positive user experience where it's not overwhelming for students who get very sidetracked and distracted from courses when they see a lot of content on the page. So my whole goal that I'm solving for is really to optimize for pages to be organized, load quick, but also maximize the learner engagement, and then focus on the upsell. So now I'm going to log out and then show you what it looks like as a student. And then now that you kind of see this, it's just really important to sort of think about this use case and the problems that you're solving for. So, okay, so now you can see that this is my student dashboard, and this is how I've transformed it. So I have this intro video. I have all my administrative, what we call housekeeping information here under the My Account, because I want my students to know and be able to navigate that so that it's much easier and much clearer when they have any kind of housekeeping problems that they're having, that they can automatically click on My Account and find exactly what they need. And then I've also set up the learning tracks under categories, so you can see the different stages of the learning journey that I've set up through the auto categories. And then the all courses reminders is basically what I've set up with specific, how do I say it? So the way I see it is this all courses reminders is sort of like highlighting key posts in the Thinkific community, so that if I am using Thinkific communities and I want to highlight specific sections of posts, sort of like, resources, experienced learners, and then this is a different track, I can sort of highlight those sections in the all courses reminders. And then what I talked about before in terms of the top navigation is, they can access all their courses here. And then I always keep at the top of the page a learning resources link, so that if students are having trouble feeling motivated or not feeling excited to learn today because of whatever learning resources, it's just a link that takes them to a collection of resources on how to, find that motivation and inspiration. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the banner slider, and then this is the auto resume from the other power up, which is the flick style settings, where the students will see where they've left off. And then you also have your ding power up for reminders and notifications. So that's it for this video, and I'll see you again next time.